Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, whenever you so happen to be watching this podcast entitled Kingdom and State. My name is Henry Jabri Harrison on the other line right there. We're trying to do something novel here, a concept that many have tried before, but no one's really ever mastered, and maybe we're not meant to master it. We're trying to humbly approach this topic of if and when there's an overlap in the kingdom and government. And what we're trying to figure out in this strange American-created juxtaposition where the Constitution tells us that power is derived from the people, we are meant to wield authority. Yet at the same time, Romans 13 tells us that we are meant to yield to authority. And we are trying to figure out, in that weird juxtaposition, at what point we are meant to have influence over that authority. That's what Kingdom and State is all about. We're going to be bringing fantastic guests in the week to come. Dr. Alan Keyes will be seen next. We also have, I'm not gonna spoil any of it. I mean, we're just gonna leave it right there, just teasing a little bit. Let's jump to a little bit right now before we really dive into some what the topics at hand are. Jabri Harrison, buddy, how you doing? I love the hat as always. What's going on in your mind? What do you think about this Kingdom and State thing? You kind of birthed this whole idea. Where are you at with it?
Yeah, I am learning. As I think we all are. And like you said, I don't think that there's a definite answer. But I love the fact that we're bringing up the conversation. And when we bring up the conversation, that's when different people could come in and give their perspective and we get a wider view. John Maxwell always says there's no one great idea. And it takes multiple people to make an idea great. So that's because people have different inputs, people have different giftedness, people have different perspectives that make the idea inform it into something great. And so that's what I think we're trying to do right now is get different perspectives. And the one thing that we could all agree upon is things need to change. And what does that change look like to you? And what does our role in that look like?
I think one of the general takes I like to come at it from time to time is going off of a quote from John Adams, actually. He wrote a letter to the Massachusetts Militia in 1798. He said the following: "Our Constitution was made for only a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." Now, I personally believe that one of the reasons why John Adams said this is because our government was meant to be so limited in its ability to influence your daily lives that something somewhere had to constrain the fleshly desires of men. Look, y'all, the line between virtue and vice has been hazy for far longer than just the past few years. And maybe our founders knew that the only way to coerce civil society was maybe one of two things: either at the end of a gun barrel or through an adherence to a set of morals, values, and principles that are rooted in an objective source beyond ourselves. These commonly accepted guiding principles were meant to be disseminated into society through a multitude of churches, organized religions, and individual faith communities. So let me say it this way, Jabri. I believe that, in other words, one could argue that the church's political influence forms the foundation upon which our entire system of limited constitutional republic sits, the oldest such constitution in the world, and a form of government that virtually every other developed nation has since replicated to some extent. Now, I said a mouthful there, buddy, but let me just straight up ask you, what do you think, if anything, the church's role? I'm talking the institution of the church. Christians as individuals is one thing. But what do you think the church's role should be to be involved in the political process, especially given how much history you have being involved in the church?
I love what you said about community. And I think that's the key is to get outside of yourself. A lot of times in America, we get into this me thing that's going on. And we've seen that grow to the point that in our community, people don't even know their neighbors anymore. And it used to not be that way because it took a community to make the community run and to make the environment that you live in sustainable. Now we have Amazon where they're flying in our packages and dropping it at our door. But it used to be our neighbor had the milk and they came over and they supplied the milk for the community. And you knew your local farmer. But a system is run best whenever the people have a mindset that it's greater than just me alone. And we all have certain giftedness and talent that we bring to the table that make the community that we are implanted in a better place. So going into the church and our role is that the church used to be the moral standard for the community, and a guideline and a guide. Not saying that this is objective truth, which I think the Bible is, but that wasn't even their mindset. Their mindset is this is just a guide to be have a better community and to be better as a people. And so,
as you serve in the body of Christ, right? It's one collective approach altogether. Yeah.
yes. And so I think that's the role. The role in church is to get back into the community, is to bring the community together, as you said, because once we play into these roles, you learn so much. I know that I started out with evangelism and then I did homeless ministry. And a lot of times when I went out, I felt like I was receiving more than I was giving. And that was because I felt like I played a part and I was doing my role and I was helping the community out and helping people with the resources that I had, and giving them out to people that don't have resources, because the resources are there. We just need people to steward those resources and distribute them. So I see the church as that. The church should be the storehouse, the place where it has the resources and people come, because again, the resources are there. Right now, we just have this stop gauge because there's not people distributing those resources.
I absolutely love what you said there about this aspect and this idea of the resources being there, right? The resources being rooted in a sense of shared community. You know, this shared culture, even where we all come together, and that's where you cultivate values and virtues that are meant to raise good, godly men and women. Look, I personally believe that modern liberalism has destroyed that aspect of shared culture. It's replaced shared culture with anti-culture. It's rendered culture and community into just relativist beliefs and practices that are untethered from anything universal and enduring. I'm reading through this book right now called Why Liberalism Failed. The author put it this way: these three cornerstones of human experience, meaning nature, time, and place, those three form the basis of culture, and liberalism's success is premised upon their uprooting and replacement with facsimiles that bear the same name. We are operating in a world that looks like something objective, but it's not. We're eating from sort of the husks of these fruit, and it's time that we get some of this fruit back. And I'm telling y'all, we live in an America right now where we advocate for freedom of religion. Yet, if a teacher places a Bible on her desk, if a student bows his head to pray in school, or if cheerleaders display the Bible verses on their posters, they're all accused of violating separation of church and state and subjecting those around them to their faith in violations of the Constitution. These are all real court cases. Look them up for yourself if you want to. And I'm telling you, Jabri, right now, we have to do something as a people group, as an institution of the church, to take back not just the culture, but the process by which we can shrink the realm of government, the stronghold that government has over our lives, and increase the role that the church is playing. Do you get what I'm saying? We need to shrink what we're relying upon government for and increase the role that the church used to have and all this stuff. And last thing I'll say here, Jabri, and then I'll kick it to you for final thoughts on all this, is that I know one of the things that's going to commonly come up in these lines of podcasts with Kingdom and State, as you can see right here, Kingdom and State, is going to be something with the Johnson Amendment. If you don't know what the Johnson Amendment is, it's a provision in the U.S. tax code that since 1954 basically prohibits all nonprofit organizations, churches, from endorsing or opposing certain political candidates. And I'm telling you, If you believe what David Barnett says, to my knowledge, not a single church has ever lost its nonprofit status for something that's said from behind the pulpit. Moreover, I believe that one could reasonably argue that the Johnson Amendment itself is facially violative of the First Amendment. I say that just to say, Jabri, setting people up for what we're about to get into, these conversations we're about to take on, how kingdom and state overlap, what the role of the church itself is in the government, in the political process. It's interesting stuff. It's going to ruffle a lot of feathers, but it is high time we have this conversation to really figure out what the balance is, what the balance was meant to be, and what the exchange was meant to be, as government can only remain small if virtues and values and real life lessons are passed along in another avenue. Jabri, I'll kick it to you for final thoughts, whatever you're thinking there, buddy.
Yeah, you talked about schools, right? So we took the 10 Commandments out of school. We took the Bible out of school. We took prayer out of school. And at the same time, the message was we are trying to be inclusive. And so in this inclusive mindset, everything was allowed in these schools. But it seemed like the Judeo-Christian values were pushed out. And this is just one theme that is almost in everything. I sit down and have interviews, and in those interviews, they say sometimes, if it's like a non-political interview, they say, we don't endorse a certain religion or a certain party, but on their shows they have all types of other ideas, and that thing isn't said to them. And so we see that all in our culture, that we're being inclusive to everything but Christian values. And so one thing that I'm trying to do is bring that back up to the table. If let's say in school per se, if we're going to be inclusive, then let it all in. If we're going to push out religion or Christian values, let's take it all out. So one or the other we have to do, but Christians have to stand up and say that we have to have one or the other. We can't have all these other things, and the only thing that we push out are the values that we hold near and dear. So, and I think that with media, I think that in politics, I think that in almost every aspect of our culture, that is the way. And so I'm glad that you guys just listen in. This is a little preview of what we're trying to do.
Just teasing.
With Kingdom and State. Just stay tuned. Like you said, we have great minds that are going to come on the show that are way smarter than me. And they're going to bring different perspectives. And we're going to learn a lot. But we also are in this movement of taking back the culture and really bringing up these conversations that make us think, that need to be brought up, that kind of been glossed over. And it's time to bring it back up to the forefront.
Yeah, and Jabri, real quick on the way out, tell them the website and that's some other stuff where they can find these ideas. It's not just myself. It's not just Jabri. There's a team of younger folks that were getting involved in this movement of instilling constitutionally conservative principles, to marry that together with biblical identity, to walk as a Christian and to steward. That's the best word that you brought up, Jabri, to properly steward the world of politics, a brand new sort of theological take on what that word of stewardship means. We used to think it was just money. I guarantee you it's probably applicable to far other things from that. But tell them the website real quick where you can find stuff.
It's biblicallyconservative.com. Obviously, the podcast is Kingdom and State. Biblically Conservative on social media, and Biblically Conservative on Telegram. So you guys go check us out. If you guys like a video rather than just podcasts, we're also going to have these videos up on YouTube.
Yes, that's what I'm loving. There you go. First little rendition of Kingdom and State. This is just Jabri and I sort of laying out the format of what we're going to discuss here, what we're going to talk about. Now you have a basic understanding of what's going to come here. The format should remain fairly pretty much the same for every guest we have on here. We're going to do this basic 4 or 5 question take, get different guests in to give their perspective on this specific issue. Again, Jabri gave you the website there. We will be signing off today. We look forward to much, much more coming soon. Hey, and pay attention. Next time coming, we have Dr. Alan Keyes. He will be on very, very soon. Love each and every one of y'all. Sincerely, we'll see you soon.